something I'm doing is significantly different. And it all just came from what fascia is. Fascia is a fluid that's 70% water versus fiber. And so it changes our perspectives on how to treat and how to look for symptoms. And because it's connected everywhere, all of a sudden it's a lens through which we can look at holistic body care, health coaching, and it opens the aperture. What we find in, Western medicine, especially, that's less integrative is that specialization leads to closing the aperture, to narrowing the focus, to, yes, specialized people, but then all of a sudden you can't see anything past what you know. And you're not trained to look beyond and to expand outside. And fascia is that thing that when you look through symptoms of a digestive system and depression and musculoskeletal problems and respiratory issues, all of a sudden they don't look like they're different things. They are one thing that is linked to this really significant body system that gives us access and different ways to do healing and conditioning and just taking care of our health in a completely radical way, new way.
Welcome to another episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Cumberbatch of OmarCumberbatch.com. So excited to share today's guest and topic. Her name is Anna Rahe, and it is about fascia. And fascia is really, really cool. It's something that's becoming more and more mainstream by the day. And she really just breaks down a lot about it, what it is. And we have the benefit as well that not only does she describe it in a good way and introduces those who have not heard of this before, but she also talks about how she was able to become so business savvy around it and really developed her company around this whole technique. So I know for a fact I've had wonderful experiences with my fascia release, and I will absolutely incorporate it more as I have the means to do so down the road. So I'm really excited to, get this out there into the world, especially considering health coaches may use this in their toolbox to get people to, just better their health. So I'm really excited about sharing her today. Good part of me getting guests like this is obviously your support, and I really am excited to always have new guests who can bring and deliver just like Anna did today. And I wanted to also just remind you, please leave a rating and review on iTunes so that I can continuously get those fantastic guests. And I have a little special that is going on right now because I am really looking to get more reviews on my podcast course. So I am offering a 50% discount, and not only you get 50% off to the course, but if you bring a friend, that friend will get 50% as well. So DM me at OmarCumberbatch.com and take advantage of this offer. And it's really going to be cool because I know that once you sign a buddy up, the chances of you completing the course drastically increase, and it helps us get a little community together to support each other and bringing out new and exciting podcasts that are going to help serve the clients that and basically the avatars that we're really interested in serving. So I don't know how long I'm going to do this deal. I'm probably going to do it for maybe 2 weeks from this start date. But if you're listening to this, just please jump on, shoot me a DM or an email and just let me know where you heard it from. And so excited to get that moving. So let's jump into the show. Hey, Anna, how are you today? Welcome to the show.
Good, Omar. Thanks for having me. It's really nice to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. I love having these selfish shows because I am such a big fan of fascia. I had a wonderful experience with it. I'm excited to share this element with the audience and our health coaches and how they can benefit for not only maybe getting a little bit familiar with this tool that you do have in apply it to their toolkits, but yeah, just you're doing so well in business, and that's one of the things that we love to see, especially someone who's doing in a thing that maybe not be so popular in as it should be, but I'm really excited to just let them get to know you. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into some questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can talk about me. And I also, at the end, want to know what you did with fascia that really was interesting. It's always fascinating for me to hear when people actually have experience with it, because it's so kind of on the fringe and on the new frontier. So I'd love to know that story from you. But about me, I started my journey when I was 18, if you can even believe it. It's almost 25 years ago at this point, which seems impossible because I still feel kind of like I'm 20. Or maybe I should say I feel more like I'm 20 now than I did when I was actually 20. I was living in a body that was just riddled with pain and restriction and health problems. I was a professional dancer at the time. I was a certified Pilates instructor. I was, by all measures, or kind of contemporary measures, a pretty healthy looking 18-year-old, strong and pretty flexible. Not as much as I wanted to be, but I just had these body complications, and that felt like my body was 80. And what was unique about these kind of symptoms or body problems were how diverse they were and how dynamic and kind of extreme they were. So some of the symptoms were like severe muscle soreness and fatigue, like the kind when you do a really hard workout and it's hard to like sit down on the toilet because your legs won't hold you, or like getting a shirt over your arms after an arm day. It's just really sore and painful and restricted. And then I would have digestive issues, major digestive issues that kind of would be diagnosed by professionals as IBS, or I'd have a colonoscopy, and nothing really kind of put a dent in that. And then some of this stuff was a little bit more scary and dangerous, I would say, like with my respiratory system. And so I would like go out running on one day through the Golden Gate Park. I was living in San Francisco at the time, and I would run like a trained marathoner because I ran regularly. And so I could keep 7.5, 7-minute miles, and I would just go and power the hills like nobody's business. And 3 days later, I would do my second run and feel like a 10-pack a day smoker. And I was like, why? Like I would go in and they would do tests, and I don't have asthma, but they give me an inhaler. And my breath capacity was big, but my ability to, fully oxygenate my muscles and move that oxygen efficiently was crippling. And so I would go to all these professionals, East and West, right? And I would try to get some like concrete diagnosis, and no one could find anything. And I kind of became this anomaly where they're like, you're just complex and, we don't know. And they kind of wrote me off with psychosomatics. And I was like, I don't think I'm crazy, but so cut to, I had been a Pilates teacher. I had rolfing done, which is, fascia body work. So I knew a little bit about the idea of fascia. I had taken a somatics course about emotional programming in fascia and posturing, and from a rolfer. So it wasn't a total foreign idea to me, but I just remember being in my small studio apartment. I had Pilates equipment, and I was like, something's wrong. Something like, what? It's not muscle, it's not bone. And I just had this light bulb kind of moment that's like, could this be fascia that's causing this, or related? And sure enough, I started going down this fascia rabbit hole, and it turned into my 25-year career, and the company that I started, and the work that I do, but also the science that I developed and kind of contributed to the field. And I think the short story was just basically that all my symptoms shared a common thing that no one was looking at, right? No one was looking through the lens of the connective tissue system. Most people who knew about fascia at the time were in body work specialties like massage and deep tissue therapies, but nobody was doing it in movement. And there was this really unique thing that I discovered that you could do with fascia that was the difference between sustainable results and chronic need for maintenance. And I didn't find the science of that until quite a few years later, but I kind of started building GST around this concept of being able to control the contractile nature of fascia. I won't go too scientific here, but so that you could actually manipulate your own tissues in a significant way that would last a permanent change. I didn't want to have to lay on a roller for 5 hours a night, releasing my muscular fascia, and then only to have it tighten up the next dance rehearsal I was in, or that I wanted to have to spend 3 hours, stretching and digging into fascia to be able to feel good after a fight with my boyfriend, or whatever the life circumstances. Fascia was just really dynamic and was very expressive of all of my that's kind of part of the science that we can talk to in terms of its holistic body care. But I started seeing clients. I had a Pilates studio in San Francisco, and I started teaching them principles that started to reprieve my symptoms. I would go to Pilates and yoga and gyrotonics and Barton Eve. I'd do all these studies and different methods, and I usually would have flare-ups. And so I started looking at what was the similarity between these methods that is, constantly triggering my symptoms. And then I would work with my own clients and be like, actually, I don't want you to close your ribs and try to like activate your core like we've been taught. I want you to lift your ribs. And these different principles started to have like immediate, results. They were pretty drastic, like 2 weeks pre-op for cervical fusion in the spine. And she canceled her surgery because her pain literally disappeared. And I'm like, something I'm doing is significantly different. And it all just came from what fascia is. Fascia is a fluid that's 70% water versus fiber. And so it changes our perspectives on how to treat and how to look for symptoms. And because it's connected everywhere, all of a sudden it's a lens through which we can look at holistic body care, health coaching, and it opens the aperture. What we find in, Western medicine, especially, that's less integrative, is that specialization leads to closing the aperture, to narrowing the focus, to, yes, specialized people, but then all of a sudden you can't see anything past what you know. And you're not trained to look beyond and to expand outside. And fascia is that thing that when you look through symptoms of a digestive system and depression and musculoskeletal problems and respiratory issues, all of a sudden they don't look like they're different things. They are one thing that is linked to this really significant body system that gives us access and different ways to do healing and conditioning and just taking care of our health in a completely radical way, new way. Yeah. So that's what I do. That's what it is. I work with fascia. I develop this science and this technology. It's a biotech that allows you to use motion to manipulate tissue to influence systems, body systems, and health in ways that were previously unimaginable. You couldn't get into, autonomic systems. You could only get in through somatic or by choice systems. Anyway, so that's what I do. And I get to work with people, and it's such a blessing and a journey to share mine with others and help people, because that's kind of what everything's about when you're in health coaching, I think, or being a good human.
Yeah, no, listen, you really thank you for sharing all that information. And it's really a testament to like just going through your own journey and not quitting and finding something that works for you, which a lot of health coaches do. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited that you did turn it into a business. What was like some of the hiccups that you ran into when you first started out and really thinking about, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is my model. What was like your first steps or maybe hiccups that you figured out or had to overcome when you first started out?
Gosh, that's a really good question. So I started my Pilates studio when I was 18. And at 18, you don't know jack squat about pretty much anything. And I did know that what I was doing was really different. And so I think my business model just followed what I knew, which was like Pilates studios and private sessions in a studio, having classes. I taught dance. And so I just kind of naturally fell into a business model. I didn't select it. And in hindsight, I probably would have done things a little bit differently. But I think one of my biggest blunders in setting up a business was related to the naming of my company and my method. And I named it GST because I got legal advice that I needed to have something that was unique and trademarkable for intellectual property protection. And in hindsight, I should have been using the word fascia for 25 years because now it's starting to become a thing. But everyone's like, what does GST mean? And what does it stand for? And so I think one of the things is that you kind of go in and when you first start out, it depends on your personality and why you start business. But I am a entrepreneur in my deepest soul. I don't think that I was ever created to work for people. And I have this hunger and self-motivated drive that is just obnoxious at times, but it's unrelenting. And it's like, I can't say no to it. And so I think I had a little bit of a different path because it wasn't like, what do I want to do? I think I would like to go into, health coaching. No, I'm a gifted teacher, but I was wanting to do acting. I got my master's degree in acting and I was a dancer. And my plan was to be an artist, not a science health person. And so I think that I read this article in Time. This might be fun for your listeners to research this. It was an article in Fortune or in Forbes. It was in Forbes. And it was talking about, is entrepreneurship genetic? And they highlighted about 10 really well-known millionaires like Ralph Lauren, the designer, and I don't know all of them, but they're like billionaires, right? Mm-hmm. And they took their children, and every single one of their children was an entrepreneur in their own right. And they were saying literally that they are discovering in research that there are genes that make you an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And for better or worse, right? Any strength taken to the extreme can become a weakness. I think that in deciding to do whatever you do, whether it's wanting to be a health coach or any type of business, the first thing is to set your compass right, like to be in right relationship with knowing your passions and your dreams, and that will help you avoid those downfalls and those kind of pits of bad business. I think I grew so slowly that I didn't make some of the bigger mistakes of like taking on loans that I couldn't pay, or taking on investors. Some of those, when you seek to grow quickly, can actually be more of a liability than just really steady, well-grounded growth. And so I don't know. I don't know that I had any big blunders, but I think that I would have probably, it was always my side gig, right? Until I went to Los Angeles in 2006, and I was still kind of treating it like my day job. And people are like, you're doing something different. What are you doing? And I decided to, at that point, I was producing some television shows that I had piloted and written and produced. And I was trying to start my acting career. And people would always stop and be like, so are you a producer? What else have you directed? And I'm like, I'm trying to be an actress. Mm-hmm. I'm not a producer. I'm not a director. And halfway through, I'm like, I actually would love to produce my own stuff and act in it and kind of do like a Robert Redford, move. And I thought that that would take my career a little bit further and faster. And so I decided to take a 5-year hiatus. I was going to be a 3-year, and just focus on GST, building the company, so that if I could build enough, income and back support, I would be able to take the extra funds and raise capital for my movies. Okay. Anyway, long story short, that didn't happen, did it? I gave up my acting career. What's really funny is that everything that I do in health coaching has basically been educated through my experiences. Like I make videos and I have to be able to know how to edit and read a teleprompter. And so all of my acting training comes out. It's just not in the same way as I had, creatively hoped. But that's why I think I would just say that for health coaches, and if they're wanting to, build their business, and it's just to find your compass, like find your strengths, and don't look at others and try to imitate or mimic what they're doing, but just really the faster you can find your authenticity in knowing what you offer and being really specific. And then I would say put your messaging in relating to your customer or your client or the person that you want to serve. Put it in the light of what you can provide them, instead of trying to educate them about what you did. That was a big mistake I made in my business. Is GST and fascia was so new, and people still, are very not familiar with fascia. So a lot of my time building my business was trying to educate the public about what I do. And I think in hindsight, if I could have had more wisdom or more experience, I would have changed sooner to talking to a person's needs. Because in the long run, they don't care about your certification. They don't care about your credentials. They want to look at you and be like, can you help me? Mm-hmm. Can you help me? I just have this problem and I want you to help me. And so this is a long explanation, but that would be the long arcing mistake that I made that kept me from growing, I think, in one aspect of being a beginning health coach.
Yeah, no, listen, it was a great answer because you answered a bunch of questions that I had. So, and
All
you
right.
corporate, which is great. So I could spare you some of those questions. But one of the things that I did enjoy about that particular answer was the Forbes reference and like how they think that they may or may not be an entrepreneurial gene. I think that's up for debate. But one of the things that I'm at least gathering from your answer is that yes, you definitely had the fire in it, but did you have? I personally think it helps to have a entrepreneurial family or background and people
Yes, I
you can
do.
lean
I
on.
definitely do.
Did you
My
have
dad
that?
is an entrepreneur, and my mom wasn't. They were both teachers, and they left their careers to do things that to kind of work for themselves. My mom was actually a stay-at-home mom after she got her master's degree, but my dad was an entrepreneur.
Mm.
And it helps a little bit. It's
What's that?
also a liability, but I am a neurodivergent, so I am ADHD. And that was one thing that really was a turning point for me of being able to, I didn't find this out or wasn't diagnosed till I was 22, maybe.
Okay.
And I struggled all through school, and I really, went to tons of therapists and, tutoring. And, but once I got my right medication, not just the medication in general, but the right dose and it became my superhero. Instead of my liability, it became my superhero skill and my dad's ADHD. I think that might coincide for people. If you don't have to have this to be a coach. I just am saying that these accumulative effects are what make you sturdy. I think that for most people, it's a really long journey to build a even viable business, much less a successful one.
Mhm.
And it's not to be discouraging, it's to set your expectations right. Else you're going to constantly be met with discouragement. You're going
Mhm.
to constantly be met with the no's. And you really have to look through and scrape away those no's and have a reason to keep going. And some people have, I have this energy theory about where people's energies come from. And I'll say it shortly, but I think that it's a powerful thing to just think about in terms of what is your source of energy. So I think some people are solar powered and they
Mhm.
wake up early at 8 a.m. with the sun. They have energy all day, and 30 minutes after the sun goes down, they're ready to call it a day.
Mhm.
And then there's the kinetic energy suppliers who are like, once they're in motion, as long as they're in motion, they're generating the friction and the necessary combustion to, have their energy. And then they go and sit on a TV at night. And about 30 to 45 minutes after they stop moving, they are gone. And then I have what's called the atomic energy people. And this tends to be the same category of people who are entrepreneurs and wanting to do something on their own. And they tend to have an untapped source or an unidentified source of combustion that propels them to do things.
Mhm.
And that is a really hard thing to cultivate if you're not built with it. And I'm not saying you can't, but if you know your energy styles, you can actually capitalize on them in your approach to building your business, right? You're
Mhm.
able to say, I'm going to choose the hours that I work based upon my energy levels. I'm going to put the hard things up front when I have my most, active Zoom state, when I have that first fuego that burns me in the mornings because the sun's up and I can get stuff done. And so because entrepreneurship and health coaching, any type of business, when you're doing it with yourself on your product, you really have to be aware of energy, right? The
Mhm.
energy you are expending, the energy that you are collecting, that you're not writing checks you can't cash, and knowing when enough is enough because running on fumes doesn't do it. And so I use that anecdote just so that people can start thinking about what kind of energy source do I have for this? And when I use my energy as a fascia kind of tie in, the connective tissue system is your body's smart grid, right? It is how your body metabolizes, moderates, condenses, exchange, and modulates your energy, running through the muscles and the low frequency inside of you, like your heart and your lungs beating next to each other, put off an energy output. That's called lo-fi energy. I call it lo-fi energy. And
Mhm.
then you have your hi-fi energy, which is like load, chemical load from stresses of the day, mechanical load through the muscles that contract when you're working out. And so this fascia is constantly busy modulating the energy of who you are and these loads in our tissues and the actions that are keeping us alive. And in order to have life and play life's long game, to build a business that is sustainable, doesn't deplete you, that's not discouraging, I think that you have to be kind of a master of your own energetics, understand how the mechanics work of your body and then your biochemistry. And then from there, it kind of sets your mindset. Like, I'm going to choose. I know that I've got everything to give this, but I am a person that needs at least 2 days a week of nothing. And then I make up for it in my energy, expenditure over here. Or I know that I cannot sit down unless I go and start my body moving because my brain can't think clearly. And so some of these are the techniques that I, kind of work with people in their coaching and setting up. Because it's kind of funny. I do find that what starts off as my body coaching ends up being a human being coaching because they're one and the same.
Yeah.
People wanting transformation in their pain levels and rehabilitation in their injuries and their, like you do with your weight loss, and the coaching of health is so expansive, right? It's a holistic approach. And so all of a sudden it's like, not just I'm dealing with someone's gut, I'm dealing with the soul of who they are and the choices that they're making. And that comes down to like mechanics. How do we put our stressors into motion to eliminate the stress and be able to be productive, humans of service, not just to ourselves, but to others. So anyway, having said that, I'm just rambling. Do you have any more?
Not at all. Like I
could talk about this forever.
No, I love it. I mean, those are again another great answer, and it really talked about a lot of different things. I love that energy model that you put out there. I think that if it's your original one, you better get that book out there and patent it or something because I think it's a great way to describe what a lot of us go through. And I think maybe to just kind of wrap it up, I would love for you to just kind of talk a little bit about your business model. Like what is it that you do and how do you actually get income? How does it all work so that you're able to do what you love and so in such a passionate way?
Oh my gosh, great question. So I'm going to be succinct, but I will tell you that it's an interesting time that you're interviewing me because one of the rules of entrepreneurship is adaptation, agility, and being able to recreate when things don't go the way that you think. And in 2019, I had always run some version of a brick and mortar studio where I would see clients in a place and have classes and be able to get my hands on people. And a lot of what I do is manual and movement. And in 2019, my lease was revoked because they were redeveloping the site. So I had been in business on the Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles for about 11 or 12 years. And it was time. I had 2 young children. I'm like, I just can't operate a studio like this anymore. And my business partner wanted to move on. And so literally I took a whole year in 2019 to reimagine and redesign GST Body into a online platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know the beast. I don't think I would have had an option, but in hindsight, I didn't know the beast that I was facing. Every business has hurdles and has growth opportunities. But I have taken the last 4 years. I have been through, 16 different tech stacks. I have transferred my video subscriptions. I have been the scrappiest 45-year-old mother of a 1-year-old that you've ever met. Going through, it's almost like starting over. And so I guess I'm sharing this with people because I am currently working on a model that is different. Like I was trying to do subscriptions so that people could come and do meet me at my online studio. And I do have an online studio and it's wonderful. It's really a challenge to know how to find the people who are needing what we offer as health coaches, right? One of those is like the marketing question of finding leads, and that becomes, online, it's less word of mouth than it was with my brick and mortar, right? I also have an e-commerce brand. It's the same brand, but it's because I developed and engineered equipment to facilitate GST movement. I have a Shopify store that I sell my equipment on. And I've always struggled to know how to hybrid them, right? People are like, well, can I do your GST movement without equipment? And some people get the equipment. They're like, I don't know what to do with this stuff because it's so different. And so I'm solving that problem. Like, how do I put these together in a really marketable way that has significant meaning and takes the guesswork out? Because people just want to feel better. They don't want to have to figure it out on their own. They just like, give me what it is. And then I went into, and I'm like, what I really love doing is working with people in this really deep, more extensive long-term coaching. So in the last 9 months, I went in and I'm like, I'm going to remodel and do this. And so I think that's one of the arts of being an entrepreneur and being a coach, is that you look for the yeses. And I don't mean scatter your seed so broadly that you can't be specific, but I think that, try something and fully commit to it. And then if it's not working, don't be afraid to redesign, reimagine. And that's where for some entrepreneurs, I think most entrepreneurs, that's kind of what makes the business side fun and exciting. Because let's face it, when you are a health coach, all you want to do is coach, right? You want to give the gift that you're really good at giving, but that only comprises 5% of the actual output and the actual, I would say, the reward of 90% of the effort, right? The 95% is you doing things that are not your favorite. Who wants to write copy? Who wants to figure out the right messaging? Who wants to do converting on my website? Who wants to try to push the next lead and figure out Facebook ads and whatever you're doing, right? Like, you have to have so many tools in your tool belt. Right. That it's like, I think that if you can get into the business side and find something that strikes your passion, that is maybe not as much as the health coaching, when you actually arrive and get to do the magic with the person who needs you, that is the gem. But we also need to find these spaces as we are struggling to be able to, or I don't know, well, it is, okay, I'm not going to, Katie, go this. Running a business isn't glamorous.
Yeah.
And right. For those of you, if you're not an entrepreneur and you're really struggling already and you don't like it, and then maybe consider another path. But if you're really loving it and you want to live for that 5%, find something in the business operations, find something that is exciting and that's creative. And that usually comes down to looking for creative in the post you do on Instagram, or looking for the creative in, how you're going to brand the product, or how you want to change your messaging slightly to, be more accurate, or, you know what I mean? It's like, I think that's what I would say to people, of reinventing and being agile in your business, because you will go through so many iterations and it will only hurt you if you're like, this is what I do, and I'm just going to do this. And it's like, well, if people aren't, if you can't, I remember reading, it's not Malcolm Gladwell. It's, oh man, it's an advertising guy. It'll come to me. I read his whole book and he's so popular. I can't believe I can't come up with it right now. But, oh man, I really want to give your listeners this name, but if I can, you can put it in your resources.
Yeah, it'll come back to you, I'm sure, when you.
Okay. I read his book and he was like, look to the smallest, audience that you can to be of significant service. And it's kind of a lesson in quality over quantity, where it's like, try to find the true fact of what we do and what drives us is connections to humans and helping, right? And I think that I have two thoughts on this just real quickly. One is, keep being willing to adapt yourself. Let your business evolve you, right? Every struggle is an opportunity for you to become more compassionate towards your client's struggle. Let your, the loads that you carry in your business refine your approach to how you can be of service. Because really, when you're a coach, you are in a role of leadership. And I find that most people who choose that path, whether they're doing it intentionally or like me, I just couldn't not. I tried to join other people's movements and I, for some reason, couldn't do it. And that's a whole nother discussion. But if you're led to do this, you also don't often, at least I didn't have a lot of mentors, right? Because when you are a leader, you need connection, but sometimes you're the thought leader in your field. You're the one presenting the idea that people need to have, and those things go side by side in entrepreneurship often. And so I think that sometimes you need to cultivate either find someone who can mentor you, which is possible, but it has not been easy for me, but also just use your business and whatever struggles you have as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to be like, okay, my messaging is not reaching my client base. I'm not getting this. Like, stop being wed to what you want to say and be like, how do they need to hear it? And in doing so, it's another fascial principle of like, you learn to yield instead of blocking the flow, instead of like, limiting based upon what, I want my business to be, or what I think I'm trying to offer people. We can easily become egocentric in the side of the business because everything is on us to be like, well, this is what I think should be presented, or this is how I want it to go, or this is what, rather than like constantly coming back to what is my greatest act of service? How can I serve the smallest audience with the greatest, success? Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, it does. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people, especially starting out, should absolutely do, because it not only helps you with the momentum to create something bigger eventually, but you'll be prepared if that day ever comes where you do get to a point where you can serve more people. So yeah, I think it's definitely a great piece of advice. So
Yeah.
Anna, you've been fantastic.
Oh my
I
gosh, thank
can
you for having me and letting me just talk at not talk. I
no.
love these conversations of growth and, potential. And I would encourage all of your listeners, it's such a service you're providing for them to be able to, deep dive into what gives meaning and purpose to what they're doing. And then also just practical tips of, how do I set up a Facebook? Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Covers
So
everything.
yeah, I know. So I totally appreciate that, and I want people to not only continuously listen to this show, but I want them to know more about you and get to know you better. So I want you to just give us your website, your social media handle, and all that we can get into knowing more about you going forward. And I'm really excited to have you on this podcast, Burns Fat, because I think that it's going to connect a lot of dots and kind of really open our eyes to something that I'm really excited because I'm a big fan of Fascia, that it actually has a contribution in that world. So yeah,
Yeah.
give us your info. I'm really
Okay,
excited about.
great. Come and find me at Anna Rahe. It's spelled funny. ANNARAHE. Think of it phonetically as Rahi, kind of a little fun.
Mm.
AnnaRahe.com. And it's a great landing pad to be able to explore GST Body and our Vital Life online studio, and also getting in contact with me directly for questions about bodies, and also questions if something sparked you about business. And I would love to help people with it's a feat, it's a mountain to climb, and it's totally doable, and success is there. It's just a matter of strategy and having people who have gone before you. I wish I had more people like that. So come and talk to me. You can fill out join my newsletter, and you'll receive a 10% off coupon for any of the products or services or sessions with me, and we can just continue this conversation there.
Excellent. All right, Anna, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for spending time with me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.